God. Oh yes, it's 7 o'clock actually.
Yep, it's
Wow.
1 o'clock. So we're gonna just go live, but that's all right, Marty. This is what we do when we when we record. This is the warts and all recording, just so you know. This is not the show. This is the recording of the show. So there's a lot of
Pre-show
extra
show.
stuff. Hey everyone, we're live now. And look who's joining us. Marty Jencius is with us today. Hey Marty. Um,
Hey,
Excellent.
it's great to be here. It's fun to be here.
Fabulous.
yeah.
Excellent.
Um, so your
It's good to have a
technical
real
question.
expert.
Yes, you saw his credentials. Real expert here.
Indeed, a real one. Yeah, exactly.
Butter, butter.
Uh,
Oh, Janet says hi, by the way.
okay.
Okay.
Hi to Janet.
Yeah.
I'm working through
That's,
the book she gave me.
yeah. Oh, good. Oh, good. Um, so you don't need to use the Zoom client anymore. You don't need to use it. You have Ecamm, so you can sign
Yeah.
into Zoom via Ecamm and use it as your client instead. Which is, I wasn't sure if you were doing that yet or not, which is why in my comments
No.
in the email I said, hey, if you are doing this, by the way, just create a clean scene, with no borders or
Yeah.
anything, because I'm going to be adding the borders. It would look really, really weird if we had you
You
in
said
with your,
borders, so that'd be
yeah,
interesting, wouldn't it?
exactly, exactly. So, but it works pretty well. I find that, so what we connected to here is an open meeting link. I didn't schedule it. I
Hmm.
just said, let's just create an open link and use it over and over again.
Right.
Well, from Ecamm's perspective, there isn't really a great way to copy the link to this meeting. So I have to
Mm.
open the Zoom
Oh,
client and copy the link to it and the details to it and get that to everybody. Uh, but if you schedule a meeting through Ecamm, then you can copy the link and stuff. That's what
Mm.
it appears to me. So I'll either have to just pop open the Zoom client from time to time to get that link when I forget it, or because I forget to paste it into notes or what have you, or schedule them. Just schedule everyone. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. This is the first official
first try,
time
first proper try. Yeah.
we're using Zoom for this. We always used Ecamm's interview mode, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So do I.
it works. It works great. But I was telling Darren I had a coupon. It was like 30% off Zoom Pro, and I said, "Well, what the heck? I'll I'll pull the trigger," and purchased it. And so now I can officially do more than 40 minutes, which we tend to push
You
quite
always go over.
hard. We just so you know, just so you're prepared, Marty, we tend to push an hour and a half to 2 hours, but that's
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do the 2 hour thing quite regularly, although Mike does an excellent editing job afterwards to turn it into a 1.5 hour show or slightly less,
or
1 hour
slightly
20
less.
minutes.
I
Yeah.
find that most of my listeners tune out at about 40 seconds. I don't really need the
Wow.
whole 40 minutes. They listen to the theme, and that's pretty much what they come to the show for.
Oh, well, who doesn't? We do come for the theme, of course. Of course. Um, but I'm cognizant of your time. You're our guest. Thank you very much for joining us, and I think we'll do our best to get started here. So I did want to give you a brief, um, unlike other people who are more organized, I don't create show notes and send them out to everybody. Um, Instead, I I create my own show notes and then I just kind of spring them upon you as we start the live
Mhm.
recording. So um, the Darren's familiar with this process, but we'll do the opening, intro the two of you, um, welcome the folks who are joining us live, and then I'll do a brief intro to the topic itself. There is space in here for brief comments from either of you, if you care to. If not, I'll just keep moving on. And then I've got recently I started inserting a small Macstock
Sure.
promo here. So
Promotion. We won't call it an advert. We'll call it promotion.
well, it's not, I don't make any money on it, so it's not an
Well, there you
advert.
go. Yeah. So
Yeah, nobody's paying me to say this.
Yes.
Anyway, so I have a brief Macstock promo, then we'll jump to the main topic. So that's kind of how I do it. Intro the topic, Macstock promo, then we'll jump to the topic. So we don't want to go in depth on the topic during the intro, in other words. we'll just,
Okay.
if you
We'll
have any
build up to
comments or anything, yeah, we'll a little brief build, Macstock promo, then we'll jump into it. And then did you get my follow-up email this morning?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just
Got that.
reordered things a little bit because I started putting them in the notes and realized, well, this really should be the second topic, not the third topic.
Yeah, I ran it all through ChatGPT and it came back with wrong answers for me to fix.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you did that. I'll change the lower third there to Marty the robot. And Darren always loves my show titles. I'm going to see if
they're always a surprise.
either of you catch the reference I'm making in here. I was being very overt in the reference, but now it's much, much, much more obtuse. But
It's subtle.
we'll see if either of you get the reference.
Cool.
Anyway.
Oh, and there's also a slight delay for me because I'm in the UK. So I'll try not to speak over people, but sometimes it can get slightly tricky and I lose my track and I think, oh dear, what have I done now?
Well, that's the nature of doing conversational podcasts.
Yeah.
And if you take that out, then it sounds really robotic.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Which is what I do in editing. Again, thanks to have I change it so it sounds like this as we do the final recording, or the final edit. That's what I do there.
Show titles.
So Darren
Yes.
actually loves to speak over us. That's his thing. Now, he uses the excuse of being across the Atlantic, but the truth is, he just loves to just loves to speak over us. It's his thing. It's his thing. No, we I think we've got this kind of ironed out, don't we, Darren? Where it's like we just take a beat. I mean, just take a beat.
But that will try to. Yeah, try to a little bit of a pause. For the live show. But I mean, Mike does a fantastic job in the editing because often I think what he does anyway, is moves the timeline slightly so that in the finished article, we sort of match up more though. So I think he just moves me back a little bit like that, so the delays don't end up overlapping, and that seems to work really well. So it all gets fixed in post, as we say.
It gets fixed in post. It's
that would drive. Having done commercial radio, it's like multi-tracking, and then you got to shift this one, and then you got to shift the other one to match this one.
Yeah.
All right.
I just let him talk over me.
Here's the inside baseball. So I use Audacity for the editing, and prior to using Ecamm for the recording, where I got the ISO tracks for all the audio, I ended up with one track for me and one track for everybody else, which made situations like we have today with 3 people on difficult to edit. Because
a bit of a challenge.
If Darren and or Marty spoke over each other, there's really no way to separate those out. Now I've got the ISO track. So I bring those ISO tracks in to Audacity, and then in a situation where we are speaking over each other, I'll run a cut through all 3 tracks and shift over the so like let's say there's an instance where Darren speaks over me, I'll shift Darren over a bit, and now I can easily shift over the other 2 tracks to match up as we,
Yeah.
Marty's done all this professionally. I mean,
yeah, I tell you, I've gotten less worried
on
about
tape.
overlay. Yeah, I've done it on tape with razor blades.
Yes.
Wow. Oh my God.
With white powder on the razor blades.
Yeah.
Oh, those. Oh, yes, yes. Wow.
It was a long time ago. It is. I use like Auphonic and Clean Voice and those kinds of things to automate all of that stuff for me. I respect that you're doing that with Audacity. I know the level of, because I used to do that with Audition, and that was where I did all my editing in Audition.
Yeah.
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 No, it's like hard work.
The few times I've tried automated solutions, I've not been happy with the results. So I just continue to edit manually. It takes a little while, but
you just have to lower your standards like me.
I'm happier with the results. And I'm now getting used to the waveform patterns of Darren's comments. But Eric's, when Eric is with us, I can pick out everything I need to pull out. I mean, I can just see it in the waveform. And so I pull it out and flatten it.
It's like seeing the code in the matrix, isn't it?
You can pick up all the ums and all the ahs.
All of it. All of it. I can pick it all up. And I do leave some ums and ahs and things in there just so we stay natural sounding.
To make it natural, yeah.
But
you don't want it too pristine, or else it would just be weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah, plenty of them come out. Nice. All right. See, we already lost our live viewer. That's what we do. That's what we do. We get our live viewers. We start talking about something completely unrelated to the show, and they drop off. That's
how the sausage gets made.
How the sausage gets made. All right.
It's only Allison. Don't worry.
I doubt it. 1925. All right. That helps me with the editing right there. So, here we go. Let's get started. We'll get going with this episode here. Episode 451. And let me find where I had to add some buttons here so everything is no longer in place. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. It's For Mac Eyes Only, episode number 451 for May 24th, 2025. Apple's AI. Loving it or missed it by that much? Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Eyes Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to discuss and praise the computer overlords who have quickly taken over our lives, among a few other things, are Darren Davies. Howdy, Darren. How are you doing?
Howdy.
And we would like to welcome special guest, Macstock presenter, and host of Vision Profiles, Gear Up and Go, and the Old Mac Gang, Marty Jencius. Hey, Marty.
Hey, Mike. It's good to be here.
I'm so
feel
glad
real
you could
honored
join
that
us.
you asked me to be on this.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Absolutely. And remember, if you are joining us live, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat room too, so if you have any questions or comments as we move along, be sure to drop them in the chat room, and we will try to address them as we move along here. Well, this episode's topic actually came about thanks to a YouTube video, an Apple-produced YouTube video. Well, it was a 6-minute commercial, really. But short though it may have been, this video stirred the brain synapses of a certain co-host of the show, Darren, who said that he would like to talk about Apple Intelligence and how watching this video helped him realize that there are more features of Apple Intelligence that he'd been using than he realized. Does that sound about right, Darren?
Oh, sorry, I went on mute again then. Yep, that is exactly right. Yes, I watched an advert and it struck me because I thought that I've not been using virtually any Apple Intelligence features specifically. When I saw the advert, I thought, hold on, this is really interesting. I know now that I've used at least 4 or 5, perhaps 6 of these things, and a few more of them I plan to use in the future. So I was already actively using some of the Apple Intelligence features that are here and now.
Awesome. And of course, the very first person I thought of to join us to discuss Apple Intelligence is someone who has been presenting on AI at Macstock for several years now, as well as, of course, other less noteworthy outlets. And that would be Marty Jencius. And I know you, Marty, have actually been playing much more heavily with Apple's AI features since your first talk at Macstock about 3 years ago, when Apple's AI was but a wistful dream in our hallucinating friends' eyes, Siri. In fact, your workshop at Macstock this summer is going to be focused solely on Apple Intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you've changed it. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
That video that Darren saw was Apple basically saying, "We're so sorry. We're so sorry. This is what it can really do. Look at all the cool stuff it can do."
Yeah, we've actually
But I'm
released
glad
some.
it sparked. Yeah, I'm glad it sparked his interest
Yeah.
because you kind of have to see that to remind you what AI is, because we have this concept that it's going to be able to solve all our life problems and do self-surgery on ourselves or whatever, and it really is built into the operating system for some very simple tasks right now.
Yeah. And speaking of Macstock, like how I slipped that in there,
Oh,
Macstock
I see what you did
9
there.
Macstock 9 is coming up quickly, and it is absolutely one of the best weekends of the year if you are into Macs, if you're into iPhones, if you're into iPads, basically all things Apple. It is 3 days of awesome talks, super useful workshops, and a chance to hang out with some of the nicest Apple fanatics on the planet while you are taking in some amazing talks from the likes of Chris Cook, Mike Schmitz, Doc Rock, Kelly Gumont, Allison Sheridan, Brett Terpstra, Katie Fox, among others like Marty Jencius, all of whom you can check out on the Macstock website. And while you are there, be sure to check out this year's schedule for some fantastic workshops and sessions covering anything and everything Apple, like getting the most from photos, Apple's new AI features, better productivity through automation and shortcuts, and even security-focused talks like staying safe online or maybe those new passkeys we've all been hearing about. So, whether you are a longtime Mac geek or you are just firing up your very first Mac, you're going to walk away with new ideas, you're going to walk away with new skills, and you're going to walk away with quite a few new friends, too. So, you can grab your 3-day pass now at max.conference.com and come hang out with us this summer, July 11th, 12th, and 13th, because it's going to be an awesome weekend. And oh, by the way, I've got a little extra special incentive for you. You can use the code MacStock50OFF, or you can use Marty's code PodTalk50, and you're going to save $50 on your weekend pass. So don't miss out on one of the best weekends of the summer, and come join us at Macstock. Okay, so let's get back to Apple Intelligence. I think I would like to start with a simple question. And I'm going to throw it to Darren first because you brought the idea to the table, Darren.
Oh no!
But please chime in anytime, Marty. And that question is, what is Apple Intelligence?
Yes, it's interesting. You could possibly interpret it in a couple of different ways, but the way I interpret it is as an amalgamation, because
Mm,
Apple have sort of hijacked, quite cleverly hijacked the AI, um, acronym there and swapped the artificial out for the Apple, and swapped it up to being Apple Intelligence is a play on I think integrating their own services and third-party services together in a more seamless way. So the Apple Intelligence to me is like bringing those two together, but in such a simple way to the user that the user doesn't really have to know that there's any split between, for instance, the S lady giving us answers, or perhaps ChatGPT. So integrating the both of them together. That's the way I see what essentially what Apple Intelligence is. And I like the approach of what Apple is doing there. It's a slightly different way of taking in what would be an AI request and giving you an AI answer. So you don't need to have an account. You don't need to have had to sign into various services. You don't have to do any of the back end stuff. So the way I like the way that Apple Intelligence appears to be working is that when you issue a request through our lovely S lady, that request gets sent off to ChatGPT in that case if you request that, but it goes through Apple's servers as a conduit, and it's all anonymized, so that there's a better appearance there of privacy, better approach to privacy. And I think one of the best things about it is that Apple's approach is to not move fast and break things, but to move slow and not break anything, which is what I prefer.
Is that pretty much how you would define it too, Marty?
Yeah, it's the core feature about Apple Intelligence that's different than other AI systems is that it's built directly into the operating system. So it's part of what Apple has as its operating system, where other services are sort of add-ons on top, and they have their own components and their own process. We've had Apple Intelligence or something like it for a long time. We just haven't called it that.
Right.
Every time you attempted to type a text message and it gave you suggestions or even corrections on your spelling, all of that is predictive text intelligence. So it's kind of at this point, Apple has stepped it up a little bit within their operating system of things that it can do, and has integrated it with the different applications and different devices that it can run on. So a lot different than other standalone AI systems that are out there on, say, Google or independent ones. So yeah, I'm with Darren. I do like the idea that it's integrated directly in. There's some protective measures about it, and when I looked at privacy issues, Apple kind of stands out alone from all the rest of them in terms of how it handles your information. And so yeah, it has some tools for writing assistance, for image generation. You call her the S lady. I call mine Sheila because mine is an Australian. I use their Australian voice, and I won't trigger anybody.
Wow.
I won't trigger anybody's, AI by saying Sheila.
Wow, that's a coincidence. I use the Australian female voice as well, actually. Well, that is interesting.
Well, we won't go there. That's a whole different
a whole nother aspect to the show.
Yeah, that's a whole other application, if you want to put
things
it that
way. Things about us nobody wants to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit TMI, possibly, yes.
Yeah, but Sheila knows them.
I really like that you brought up the fact that artificial intelligence has been with us for a while now in many shapes and forms. In fact, depending on how tightly or loosely you want to define the concept of artificial intelligence, it's actually been with us for decades, if you care to go back that far. I mean, even simple things where we ask the computer to stay on top of our spelling or our grammar is in a sense a form of artificial intelligence, even if not by the strictest definition of it by today's standards. So I like that you mentioned that, because it has been with us for a while, and it's just so happens that the terminology AI or the terminology artificial intelligence is what is the hot topic these days.
Yeah. When I get a chance to give a longer presentation, I will not spend a lot of time on this, but I'll make that point very clear in terms that it's been with us. This is where it is now, and this is where I think it's going to go into agentic AI, which is a whole different level of working and operation. But I support what Darren says in the fact that Apple wants to go slow and not break things.
Excellent.
And we've already seen that with some of the standalone systems that they've gone pretty fast and broken some things. So
they certainly have.
using your data to do it with too. So there's some brilliance in Apple's process, although they've had to roll back some of the things that they said and the dates that they would have things done. And we're still waiting for it to fully evolve as it was promised us last year.
Yeah. You both raised an interesting question in my head, and that is, you mentioned the fact that when Apple's models can't directly answer your question, it's often passed off to ChatGPT. And you don't need an account to do that. And in other words, your dependence.
You can have one.
You can have one, but you're dependent solely upon.
You don't need one.
Apple to pass the query on to ChatGPT and return the answer back to you again. The question that I have is, when you do that, what features of ChatGPT are we taking advantage of? We know that there are multiple levels of ChatGPT, some paid, some free. What is it that Apple is using to generate the responses that we receive?
Well, I don't know if Marty would answer that, or whether I should, or I think I could as well, but we probably both could in a way, but in different ways. Marty would be explaining it much better than me, probably. But yeah, I think going back to what I was saying earlier, it's anonymizing your user request so that ChatGPT doesn't know that it's coming from you or an account. It's just an anonymized question that Apple servers are sending over to ChatGPT, and then they get the result back to Apple servers, and then Apple servers send that back to our lovely S lady to tell us the answer. And although it sounds like using that method, you won't be able to do follow-on questions, but you can do follow-on questions. So you can carry on typing into the Siri box a follow-on question from the first one that you answered, and that will also go through ChatGPT. But currently it's slightly tricky because you sort of have to know how to phrase it. So if you start off talking to Siri, saying, hopefully it didn't trigger anyone, saying to Siri that ask ChatGPT, and then you say your question, that will tell Siri to send the request directly to ChatGPT rather than trying to answer it herself. And then the follow-ons from then come back and forth through ChatGPT, but through the conduit of Apple servers and Siri. So you get that continuity type thing, although it is slightly different because it's stuck in that little window along the right hand side. But some of the users that I know that I've shown this to really quite appreciate the fact that it's always there on screen. So the type to Siri box is always there, and there's a couple of little settings you can click on in settings, funny enough. So you can enable press the command key twice to enable the typed Siri box to just pop up. So that's quite a nice one to give you a little shortcut. And there's another setting to say turn off Siri confirmation for ChatGPT requests. So if you ask something that goes through to ChatGPT, it stops macOS from popping up a request to say, "Are you sure you want me to send this to ChatGPT?" Because your intention is that you always want to, or if you choose that method, you might always want to do that. So you can turn that pop-up up that would normally ask you permission. As Marty was saying, the approach is quite nice because it gives you enhanced privacy and integration into the OS. So yeah.
Okay.
Did I answer the question? I might not have answered the question.
I'm going to rephrase the question.
Yes.
Let me rephrase it this way.
I might have rambled.
No. The answer was perfect, but I don't know if it's what I was asking. Maybe it's what I was asking. When you have an account with ChatGPT, a free account, you get a certain level of service. And when you have a paid account, you get these additional services that you don't get as a free user. Where within that scale does Apple's interaction with ChatGPT fall? Are we getting the free service or are we getting the equivalent of the paid service? In other words, is Apple paying ChatGPT on our behalf to give us this enhanced service, or are we getting the equivalent of the free service?
It's hard to say. I pay for my ChatGPT because I'm running things on it that are available on the paid version. I'm using it a lot, and I'm running it things like deep research on it, and I'm doing some complicated searches that I put information in order to be able to use that information to generate an output. To support what Darren's saying, yeah, it is, you make some decisions about what goes to ChatGPT and what doesn't go to ChatGPT. I have it switched, when you set it up, and you have to intentionally set up Apple AI, Apple Intelligence on your device in order to get it to run. So you're making a decision to first have it on your device, and second, then in that you're making a decision as to whether or not you want to send requests out to ChatGPT. I might say maybe ChatGPT is paying Apple versus Apple paying ChatGPT.
Okay.
Because their service gets exposed to millions of users.
Yeah.
And there was the kerfluffle a while that was they were going to automatically set up AI on devices for you, and they backed off on that, and now it's an opt-in instead of an automatic process. To clarify a little bit of what Darren says, you have the on-device intelligence, and I think that's where they're still struggling because they can't use all the contexts of all the information you have on your device. So like that commercial that got them in deep doo-doo was, when is my mother-in-law coming to the airport, and what time should I pick her up? And so all of that information meant it had to understand it from the context of on your device, like who's your mother-in-law, where are you, what's the nearest airport, what flight might she be on. All of that requires a lot of data on device. So you have the on-device options, and then if it doesn't go into on-device, you can go into kind of the protected cloud that Apple has. And that space is where it will look for connections that aren't on device to answer whatever request you have. And if it doesn't have those connections in that cloud, then it will then ask you, can I please go out to ChatGPT to search this information? Do you permit that to happen? That's I think the brilliance of Apple, because they're anonymizing the information both at their own cloud, but also at out to ChatGPT, and they're asking the question, they're getting the answer back, but they know it's connected to you to be able to send the answer to your device. But you've got this protected walled garden. Now, here's what I think the real thing is, because Apple has these. They're really touting these M-chip server farms that's doing all this stuff.
Yes.
And, energy efficient, heat efficient. But, suddenly when they're getting an anonymized answer back from ChatGPT, they've got data they can put within their, the answers about flights coming into Cleveland and things like that they can put into their cloud. So that there's going to be less requests out in the future.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you mentioned having a paid ChatGPT account. Is there an ability to integrate that paid account into Apple Intelligence? Is Apple Intelligence aware of the fact that you have a paid account, or are you accessing that paid account outside of the realm of Apple Intelligence?
Both. I think
Okay.
when I give permission, it's asking me to put my login to ChatGPT as part of the setup. So it knows it's going to my account to at least one, prove that I have the account, and two, possibly to use the different levels of sourcing that the paid account will do.
Oh, well, maybe I'm confused about something then. So when you use Apple Intelligence and it asks, can I send your query to
Yeah.
ChatGPT? I was under the impression that didn't require an account, but now it sounds like maybe when you're doing the setup, it does require an account, or it
It
does
doesn't
not.
initially require an account. It's an optional thing that you can choose to do if you do have a GPT
Oh,
account.
gotcha.
You can pop
Okay.
into settings, and then you can allow Siri to log into your GPT account on your behalf. So it's a choice. You can do both. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So you have the option to either use it completely anonymized or,
By default, yeah,
Mhm.
that's it. By default, it's completely anonymized, or you can choose to associate it with your real live persona over at ChatGPT as well.
okay. Cool, 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 cool. Um, so who can use it? Who can use Apple Intelligence on their devices?
Well, iPhone 15 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max, iPhone 16 series with a A17 Pro chip or newer. Um, on iPads with an M1 chip or newer. So M1 iPad Air or newer, and M2 iPad Pro, M4 iPad Pro, apparently. Anything better than an M1 chip or an M1 chip or better on an iPad.
Yeah.
Max with an Apple Silicon M1 chip or later, and Vision Pro can use it.
And Vision Pro.
Um,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and and I'll tell you, ChatGPT does not know that, but yeah, these things are available on Vision Pro. And I was a little concerned when I did some searching and could not find Vision Pro listed because I'd been using some of the
Using
tools on Vision
it.
Pro. And so I put my headset on just before this recording, and sure enough, it's there in settings for
Wow.
Siri and Apple Intelligence.
Now, full disclosure, you often, or I think you always run the beta and pre-release versions of
Yeah,
Vision OS and
yeah.
even iOS and Mac OS. The
Mm.
ability to integrate Apple Intelligence into the Vision Pro, that's a new feature?
It's now they just came out with the 2.5 version. We're going to see three possibly. The developer's going to see three at WWDC.
Hmm.
And there's all sorts of rumors about what could or could not be on it. But yeah, it's available in 2.5.
Okay,
So
cool.
I and other folks, Eric on Vision Profiles and Dave Ginsburg, have been running the betas generally to test them, and we're not having any problems with them. But Apple Intelligence has been part of our integration with that since the beta started doing it, and it might have been
Wow. Interesting.
2.4
Cool.
with some of the things that they were doing. They were following the progression of Apple Intelligence along with what was going on in iPad and iPhone.
Okay. So to
I think
recap,
AI is possibly going to be one of those things that could potentially revolutionize Vision Pro because of all sorts of things. I mean, many people with disabilities, for instance, will be able to have enhanced usage of systems for not just, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in there already, eye tracking and so on, but combined with default access to AI within that environment, I think it could potentially trip Vision Pro over into a new revolution for Vision Pro and visual computing. Yeah, spatial computing, I should say.
Spatial computing. So to recap, pretty much if you have an Apple Silicon Mac, iPhone 15 Pro, not 15, but 15
not
Pro,
the 15,
right?
The 15 Pro onwards. Yeah, that's it.
What about the 16? Does it have to be a 16
Yep.
Pro?
Yep. No, anything in the 16 series.
Gotcha.
As long as it has a 17.
So 15 Pro,
the whole 16 line
or higher,
upwards,
and then iPad, Apple Silicon iPads, and Vision Pro. Yeah. So that's who can run Apple Touch. Okay, cool. Now, here's the fun question. What features does Apple Intelligence bring to our devices? We've danced around this a little bit, but what are the highlights? What can we expect if we flip that little toggle switch in our Mac system settings? What happens? What magic does Apple bestow upon our Macs?
I have a short list of 8 items that are currently active and working right now. So Apple has been criticized for being behind in the AI side of things, but people then mistakenly assume that there is no AI facilities within Mac OS, which is not true. There is more to come, definitely more to come, and some improvements on existing features of Mac OS, but especially I'm thinking about Mac OS at the moment. But there are 8 actual features ready and waiting for you to use right now. So I'll pop through. I'll just quickly pop through the ones that I've got listed down. So I've got one of my favorites, which is photo cleanup, which is intelligently analyze. Oh, the cats come to join me. Intelligently analyzing your photos for things that could be cleaned up or removed from a photo. Does that really well within a few seconds. You click on a photo, there's something there you don't want. Apple Intelligence will analyze it and think, oh, you don't want that traffic cone there. That's an obvious thing to get rid of. You just tap on it and it's gone. And it fills in behind the traffic cone what should have been there, which is, I find, always remarkable. Like it's guessing what should have been behind that traffic cone in the image, and it just pops it in there, which is quite miraculous and does a fantastic job. So that's my favorite feature, photo cleanup. Then we have Genmoji, which I don't use too much of at the moment, but I think I will be, especially when I upgrade my phone. So that's quite a nice one where you can create your own. You're not limited to an emoji set. You can have whatever emoji you want to embellish your texting, which is all fun. And linked to that, there's Image Playground, which is extremely simplistic and has been widely criticized. But I think Apple does have to be extremely safe here with generating images, because you can imagine the kerfuffle that would happen if all the guardrails were off and you could generate any potentially nasty image within Apple Playgrounds, and then the criticisms of Apple would be immense. So they've got to play it a lot safer than a lot of other people that do image generation. So it is simplistic, but I have used it for things like generating a bit of a background, generating things like an inanimate object, and it does quite a nice rendition of a cog. I wanted a cog on a blue background, and it did a rather nice set of images for me of a cog on a blue background, so I was happy. I'm easily pleased. And there's my other favorite feature, which is Mail Summarize. I have a particular friend, you know who you are, who, when I send him a sentence or two, he'll send me back an email reply of roughly 497,000 pages. So being able to scroll to the top of mail and click on the summarize button for a particularly long email to give me one paragraph of what he said, rather than wading through War and Peace, is essentially, it's really, really useful. I find very, very useful to have quick summarizations of an email that's sent to me that's very long. So I use that one all the time. Again, these are things that I found myself using that I didn't know I was using AI features. And it was only when I saw this this nice little Apple ad that I thought, oh, I am actually using a surprising number of AI features. And as Marty said earlier on, there's two sets of nice writing tools as well, which I particularly think are implemented really well. So you've got the Compose window writing tools, rewrites, and the writing tools in Notes as well. So you can get up a blank note, and you have your writer's block there, and you've got a blank page. You don't know where to start. You can just tap on the tap writing styles compose, writing tools compose button, and say what you would like to start composing, and it'll give you a very, very good starting point about what to put in your new note. So you've got a blank note and you don't know what to start with. And you say, compose me a starting point with the writing tool. So that's a really good one. There's a bit of visual intelligence. I've found myself doing this as well. I've not done it yet because I've not upgraded my phone. But I've had the situation where I've gone into town and I've seen a poster exactly like it shows on the advert. There's a comedy show, and there's all sorts of details like when, where, and who's on, and what time, and so on. And I have to try to put that into an event to remind myself. But visual intelligence, just press the side button, show it to the poster, and say, make me an event from that. And analyzing the poster to bring out all of the components of that poster and putting that into a well composed event in your calendar. Perfect. I'm going to be using that a lot when I get my new phone upgrade. So that's another one that I don't use yet, but I will be. And then there's the follow-up on the visual intelligence bit as well. So it's really only 6 features, but this is the second part of visual intelligence, where you have an ask button, which is particularly useful for various things. And this is one of the things that I think may be coming down the line in the future when we have a smart glasses type situation or an enhanced version of Vision Pro, whereby the visual intelligence can be live and tell someone what the glasses are seeing. For instance, say for a blind person, so the blind person can walk around. They can already use some enhanced features to tell them where a door frame is, for instance, and where the handle of the door is, which I think is remarkable. But this will do this visually and also better describe your surroundings. So imagine that you're a blind person and having your surroundings talked about to you, so that you can imagine what you're seeing. It could be quite incredible. So that's the ask button part of visual intelligence. So you can actually ask it what on earth it's looking at. So those are the features that are available right now. So I think that's actually quite an impressive list, considering people say Apple Intelligence doesn't really exist. It's all rubbish. It's not there. There's nothing there, but there clearly is.
Yeah, I'll add to the list. There's one that I think I'll probably try and demonstrate at Macstock called Image Wand, where you can create a sketch of what you want Apple to then turn into a full image of. So I'm a lousy artist, but I'll draw a circle with 2 dots and a slit and as a head. And I can sketch as much as I can, and then using Image Wand, ask it to create an actual image of it. Now, it looks a lot like some of the images that are generated through Image Playground. It's got that sort of pixelated kind of cartoony feel to it. But still, it's great if you want a quick illustration or something to embed in your document that gives the reader a sense of style or what you're looking for to include. Instead of just talking about, well, you've got a long list of what I agree with Darren. You've got a long list of things that Apple Intelligence can do built into the operating system, built into primarily Apple apps at this point. What will the future hold? Well, part of the problem has been the S Lady. And I think what's going on is they're taking a serious look at, no pun intended, they're taking a serious look at what the S Lady is capable of doing, given the foundation it's built on. And, they were going to beef up the S Lady, and that's been a promise for every rendition of the operating system since she came out. And I think they attempted to do was just take what the S Lady was and put layers and layers and patches on top to get it up to a functional context intelligence that we could use. And they found that's not going to work. So I think there's going to be some major tearing down and rebuilding of S Lady function. And that in itself is the delay. It would account for the delay. It'll be interesting to see what they say about it, if anything, at WWDC. However, the things that are kind of missing from are all focus around the S Lady. And most of it is deeper context issues with the different actions on the different platforms. So next gen Sheila with deeper context and on-screen actions in the iPhone, on-screen and Siri actions in personal context. All of these are coming later in 2025 or 2026 when I looked for data on this. More S grades, Sheila upgrades for the iPad, and some of the Sheila upgrades coming in 2005, 2026, not only the personal context awareness, use of messages, calendars, and all of those things, but also on-screen content actions. So Sheila will be able to see what you're doing on screen and saying, would you like some help with this? Hopefully it's not like Clippy, but better than Clippy.
I so miss Clippy. I miss Clippy.
Or Recall.
Clippy was awesome. Actually, I used the little cat. I didn't use Clippy. I used the little cat that came with it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we can put a little picture of Clippy down in the, post it on, put it on the side of your screen so you always feel that Clippy or the cat's always there.
So wistful.
Yeah. And large language models with Sheila, combined with Sheila, is also the predicted part. Now, developer tools, and I think where WWDC might go is they're going to open up the APIs for developers to put and connect to Apple Intelligence within their third-party projects or third-party development. And that sounds really cool. That way they can have a buy-in to it. Because right now, we're pretty restricted to Apple products and Apple software in order to do any of this. But if there can be a callback from an app that I'm in that's not an Apple product to whatever Apple Intelligence is by the time that's produced, that would be very cool. And app intents is the other thing. Expanding app intents for Siri to control the third-party apps if you need it.
Very cool. And I know in some cases you can't say, but is any of the stuff you've been talking about things that you've experienced through the betas, or just rumors that you've read about?
For me, I look at some of the some of the things Apple Intelligence can do, and I'm just not excited about it. I really am not excited about Image
shocking.
Playground. I just, and then I have to kind of put myself in check because generationally, it's not my thing. Genmojis are those little pictures that are too small for my eyes to discern what the meaning is when it shows up in a text message. For other generations, that's like it's all about. They can be all about that and they can get excited about it. So the writing tools is the big thing. I would like to probably play more with, the image and cleanup image. I'm waiting for Apple to actually advance that product to the point where there's a fire hydrant and I want to erase it. And it does that in the picture, but it also does it in real life. Just imagine the fun you could have.
Wow.
Taking people and things out.
I don't think
it's there yet.
I'm with you, Marty. We actually had this conversation on another podcast. You and I specifically had this conversation. I am simply not a fan of the visual look and style of AI generated imagery, and I can pick it out when I see it. In fact, there's a new commercial that's running on YouTube right now, and it's clearly all AI generated, and it just bugs the heck out of me. And Image Playground has that look. It has that feel. And you rightly explained, as you did just a few minutes ago, look, Mike, we're old. It's a generational thing. And, yeah, you may not like it, but it's the way it's going to be. Live with it. I think that's pretty much the words you had used. No, I'm kidding. You didn't say that. But I am curious about things like photo cleanup, because I've had tools like that at my disposal for several years now, whether in Pixelmator Pro or whether in Affinity Photo or, folks who have it in Adobe Photoshop. I am curious how Apple's photo cleanup compares to the tools that are found in professional level apps. Have either of you played with it to the extent where you can see how they compare?
Yeah, well, I've got another couple of the two that you mentioned there. I've got Affinity Photo and I've got Pixelmator Pro, which both have that sort of functionality. That the way they approach it is it's more for the artist, to know what you're doing a bit. But the Apple's approach for photo cleanup in the Photos app is more presented much more simply. So it will initially decide for you what it thinks it would recommend as being cleaned up and put little swirly outlines around them so you can see them. But it's just presented so easily that anyone that wasn't ever or hasn't ever in the past been involved with any photo manipulation could easily still understand what was going on and what they were asking it to do to clean up a photo. And they're just suggestions, so you can circle other things and you can point to other things and do stuff in the image as well in a similar way as you can, say, in Pixelmator Pro. But it's just in the presentation. So the way that Apple presents being able to do a cleanup on a photo, it's just so simplified that it opens up the feature to a lot more people. So many more people that would normally shy away from doing advanced photo editing, for instance, can feel at home and happy with using Photos Cleanup instead, because it's just presented so straightforwardly that they can just, it's a way of getting them into using more advanced features like photo cleanup rather than making it more of an exclusive thing to people who know about editing photos in the first place. So I think it's a good way to bring in new users to this sort of thing that they would normally not approach doing because it's a bit too scary. So I think Apple does present it in a really, really good way to make it accessible.
Okay, so excuse my cynicism, but I simply do not believe it's as perfect as Apple presents in the commercials. So I guess my question is, how have the results been for you? How good is the object removal? Can you tell that there are artifacts left over from it? Because look, the tools in Affinity Photo and Pixelmator Pro are not perfect either. It takes a little bit of work to make sure that you get
none of them are perfect, but
an image that looks good at the end. How does this compare when you use it in real life to what we see in the commercials?
Yeah, it is actually really good. The results can be spectacular. So say, for instance, you have a photo that otherwise looks amazing, but you've got a telephone wire up in the top of your lovely sunset picture. You've got the world's most amazing sunset picture, but there's this telephone wire in there. So you just drag your finger across the wire, it's gone. You'll never know it was there. And you get, and I've done this also on a beach scene. So picture someone sent me of them on the beach. There were some other people on the beach that he didn't want those people there, but they were also standing in front of a stone wall as well. So you had the sand of the beach and the stone wall at different levels. Mm-hmm. So I was happily removing those people from the photo, and it put in a very, very, very convincing. I mean, you have to zoom right up to even think that something had changed. So there was the perfect rendition of sand there that didn't look like it was copied from the surrounding sand, which it was, but it didn't look like that. And also the stone along the wall was perfectly rendered as if it was always there, and the people were never standing in the wrong place. And the results were actually quite spectacular, very, very, very close to what I would get exactly if I used the same sort of feature that was in Pixelmator Pro. So I've checked them almost both against each other on similar images, and I was surprised at how good Apple's photo cleanup was, and how clever it was for it to decide in quotes there what was a feature that you wanted to remove. So it's like it made some decisions, and I thought that it made some interesting decisions about, oh yes, you definitely don't want this in your photo, I'll highlight this for you.
Darren, does it remove them? I assume. I think I've tried it once or twice. And if my memory is correct, that it removes them sort of based on the depth and depth of field issues, like here's the fire hydrant, then behind it is some grass. Let me go ahead and almost, if I remember correctly, it does that little glow ring around it, like you're going to create a sticker out of something. So it's using that photography sticker development thing that we've seen for a while and using it for cleanup. And I would imagine the quality of what the image is as your background is going to determine how well it can blend it or put it in and to remove the fire hydrant or whatever you're removing. But because of it, I've got lots of stickers that have fire hydrants in them now.
We're going to have to delve deeper into this fire hydrant obsession of yours, Marty.
Yeah, there's something going on there.
The thing that I get about, I used to do photography a long time ago and used to go into dark rooms, and there's a place that you could rent an hour for a dark room. Mm-hmm. And for me, the whole idea of taking a good picture versus making a good picture separates art from skill. I mean,
you're not wrong.
It's art. It's not photography anymore. It's art. And so the idea of doing all that manipulation bothers me a little bit at some level, because that's not what I saw when I took the picture.
Yeah, it can be a blend though nowadays, can't it? So it's not just either one or the other. It's a blend of the two. So it's good to start off with a photo that's near perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect, and then you can fix it in post.
I mean, I saw somebody do a demonstration on Pixelmator Pro, and it's like, oh, well, it was a cloudy day. Well, let's remove all the clouds and make it a nice sunny day. there's too many shadows on this statue. Let's take the shadows off the statue and then let's brighten it up. And it's sort of like it's not your experience of reality anymore.
Yeah, so, I think edits normally for a photographer, edits normally need to be quite subtle. So say, for instance, you look at what a pro photographer workflow would do. Say if they're doing portrait headshots and things like that, they will zoom right into your eye and they'll sharpen up the iris around the eye. It's almost imperceptible, but it's enough to give it a zing and to jump out at you a bit more just by doing a little bit of a sharpen. So most pro photographers will do small amounts of edits, but very, very well targeted edits. They won't replace the whole sky. That would normally be a no-no.
and yet sky replacement is a very popular photo editing tool.
For the amateurs, but not for professional photography.
Well, there's an application called Luminar, and sky replacement is one of its
features,
core features. And the interesting thing about that is if you're not careful and someone actually knows the location you took the photo, they're going to ask why the sun is setting in the opposite direction from where it should be setting. Because you simply substituted a static image of a sky in place of the old sky.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, didn't Samsung also get into trouble for that because of their unbelievable super zoom? So they were zooming into pictures of the moon and getting rather spectacular results, and you find out that what they were actually doing was a moon replacement. They took an AI moon and pasted it over your blurry, horrible moon to pretend that you'd made a great shot. They got into trouble. They got found out for that one, but it wasn't a real picture of what you took.
Yeah, is the AI moon made out of AI cheese?
No, but they did do quite a clever thing. So they matched up the shadows of the moon to match the replacement moon, so it didn't look like it was fully just a plastered on copy of the moon on top. But they did get found out that the actual picture that people were taking with these super zoom phones weren't actually really super zoom phones. They were just replicating an image that they thought you wanted to see.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a question that falls into this realm in just a few moments. I am going to ask, do we need an AI moon? I mean, is that something that is...
Well, no, we don't. We shouldn't have one.
No, exactly. In our back pockets as we edit our photos? I don't think so. But
I don't either.
We've covered the available features, or at least the features to the extent that we have them at the moment. As we mentioned a little while ago, as Marty rightly pointed out, AI is not new, but lately everyone, and by that I mean big tech, software developers, and yes, even fast food joints, think that we need AI in our lives. Now, since Apple Intelligence is what Apple is giving us, what makes Apple Intelligence better, or what makes it worse? We can go down either path, but what makes it better than the competition? And the general competition, I guess, would be things like ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot and Claude, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as you use it, what I think I know what Darren's going to say, but what makes it better? Why should we be using Apple Intelligence instead of the others?
I think it allows people that wouldn't normally go out of their way to find an AI to at least get introduced to using AI features, because as Marty said, it's baked into the operating system, so it makes it easily accessible to start yourself off, at least on the journey of making use of AI features. And also, as we said earlier, because it's the privacy aspect is there and things are anonymized, that it feels a bit safer for people to delve into the world of AI, at least initially of Apple Intelligence. They can move on then later on, further down the road, as they discover more and more things and want to do more and more in-depth stuff with AI, and then, as you say, make use of ChatGPT apps, especially directly, because they're often available in the App Store, and Gemini, Copilot, Claude, etc. Although I think, as Marty said earlier on, there have I probably won't go into the detail of what happened, but because their approach is often to move fast and break things, in the early days they did. So definitely Gemini, especially, and also Meta recently, have gotten into a bit of hot water for doing definitely wrong things that you would not want to see AI doing. So one of the benefits for going through Apple Intelligence to start you off on the journey of using AI is that won't happen. You don't get these extremes will be filtered out by Apple's prompting, because Apple does add their own prompts onto what gets fed through as well. So it's a little bit safer as well. So that's one of the things I'd say about the advantages side. But you're right, there are downsides to doing it that way as well.
How about you, Marty? You use quite a range of different tools.
Yeah, and thanks to you and Macstock and the other places I'm presenting, I have paid versions of some of these tools, at least until the end of July. The big thing with Apple Intelligence is the on-device private cloud. As we've mentioned, you look at ChatGPT and queries are stored by default. You can, if you have a paid account, you can choose. I'm not sure about the unpaid accounts. Maybe Darren knows, but you can choose to opt out of your information being used for modeling at ChatGPT. So I imagine if I am giving Apple my connection to my account and my account opts out of the model, then I know my stuff is not going any further than Apple in a sense to be able to manage it. Gemini has the same problems in terms of using your material and Google, of course, using your material for modeling. Copilot, again, consumer data can train models, and Claude. There's no training from user model by default, according to what I've got with Claude. The other things that I think, are integration. If you don't have an iPhone 15 Pro or an iPhone 16 Pro or with a Pro chip in it or any of the M1 devices, you can still do AI. It's just that you're running them off of apps that you can, and the apps are available in the App Store. So you don't have to have a modern phone to do AI when it's available in app settings for people to be able to use it. With Apple, it's integrated. So you don't necessarily have to use external apps for some of this unless you choose to do so. And then hopefully in the future, near future, we'll see personal customization on the device. So Sheila gets a little smarter and is able to connect all the things that are going on in our life if we choose to do that. Again, one of the advantages of all the other services is that it's kind of available on any device that you want, even Apple devices, whereas Apple Intelligence is only available on Apple devices.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So that would be a huge advantage for someone with a slightly older hardware. Even Intel Macs can take advantage of AI by utilizing third-party services, even if Apple Intelligence isn't available to them.
That's right. Yeah, I have the Copilot app installed on my rather old iPad, and I'm happily using Copilot on that old iPad very, very nicely. Everything works great. So yeah, yes, you don't have to. The other thing I was going to mention is that especially with, say, for instance, Meta and Gemini, their business models, essentially from the companies that run them, are based on advertising. So they're trying to gather data to micro-target you an advert to make you buy something. Apple's business model is very much more straightforward and transactional. You buy one of their devices and you use the features of that device. So they're not trying to sell you any third-party micro-targeted ads to you. So because they're not trying to sell you anything, I think Apple's approach is to using AI is a nicer user experience.
I will second that from the standpoint of it annoys the heck out of me to no end that seemingly I don't have a choice to turn off Gemini. I don't have a choice to turn off Copilot. They're just there. And if you try to turn them off, they just keep coming back again. They're like zombies. They keep rising from the grave and coming back again and again and again. And as Marty pointed out, for a very, very brief period of time after Apple Intelligence was launched, if you turned it off and then installed an update, it came back again. The zombie of Apple Intelligence came back.
I think Apple is also doing that a little bit. Yeah,
Apple has fixed that. It now kindly stays off if you choose to keep it off. That might be an advantage of a third-party AI like ChatGPT, in that you have a choice whether you are using it or not, whether you use it through the official ChatGPT app, through the web, through MacGPT. You have a choice if you're running that app and when and how often you interact with it. Apple Intelligence gives you the choice of turning it on or turning it off, depending on your interest in interacting with it. And yet, you fire up Microsoft Word and gosh darn it, there's Copilot. Or you log into Gmail and there's Gemini. Hi, Gemini. I don't want you, but there you are. And I think your point was a very good one. There's a very pointed reason why Microsoft and Google and some others are forcing it upon you. It is their way
trying to sell you things.
They're trying to sell you things, and it's their way of generating revenue. So I think that's a huge advantage that Apple Intelligence has, and by extension, others, like I said, ChatGPT, where you have a choice of whether you want to run it or not. I was going to flippantly ask, do we need it? Do we need artificial intelligence? Do we need Apple intelligence? I think that is something we just discussed. If you want to use it, you can enable it. If you don't want to use it, disable it. It's your choice whether you use it or not. The tools you had at your disposal previously are still there. If you don't want to use Apple's photo cleanup tool, use a different tool to do that type of work.
Yeah, use a different one, or just don't click on the button.
Yeah, if you don't want to use Apple's Mail Summarize feature, or you don't use Apple Mail and thereby can't use Apple's Mail Summarize feature, there are other tools, including Apple's own summarization tool that's been there in macOS forever. But assuming we do want to use some form of artificial intelligence, just from this discussion alone, I would say the options seem overwhelming. How do we choose? How do we choose which to use, Marty? What is your advice? How do we pick what we should use, or is the best approach a little bit of everything?
I think the playing field is so crowded right now. It's hard to discern. There's so many, every time one artificial intelligence app comes up with something, then another one will attempt to copy it. And so the lines are getting so blurred right now. Mm-hmm. It's hard to pick a survivor of this. Generally, I think the way people get interested in this, they hear about a app or a thing, they see a demonstration about Perplexity. I have a friend that's wild about Perplexity. And so our discussions are about Perplexity versus ChatGPT, which is kind of where I do all of my complicated work. And so we've gotten together and done Zoom and shared screens. And I'm like, this is what this can do if you use it right. in terms of complicated requests on ChatGPT, using deep research and using other things. And they're like, wow, I don't think I can do that on Perplexity. But I think what happens is people find an AI religion, and they stay with it until they see something different that catches their eye. And so we're in the dating stage, we're in the hormone-laden teenage dating stage of trying to figure out, who we want to wind up with. But I think they're going to be winners and losers. I think what Apple might do with Apple Intelligence is right now they have the ChatGPT tracked, that if people want to use that as an external, they can use that. I think they've talked about adding Gemini.
I've heard that.
So I think not only will you have the opt-in, do you want to opt into Apple Intelligence, but you're going to have a series of possibilities that you could switch on in terms of apps that you want the requests to go out to. And I think it's going to force some of the apps to, in order to be viable within the Apple ecosystem, to be able to say, I want to opt out of my stuff being used for modeling. So they continue to protect the privacy stuff that Apple has out. But I think Apple's not going to try and necessarily generate in their own AI system. They're building up their private cloud, I think, with good information, and there'll be less reliance on those external services. But I think it's going to come to choose column A, column B, column A and B, column C as your external provider for AI. And then also that makes it a lot simpler than how many apps do I have to pay for to discover what they can do and what they can't do.
I think that's one of the advantages of the Apple Intelligence approach, as you said, Marty, because Apple can cherry pick different services to integrate into different aspects of Apple Intelligence from different providers. So they can cherry pick the best of what GPT can do, the best of what Claude, say, for instance, could do. Say, Claude, I believe, is particularly good at the coding side of things, and it can code in Swift. And Apple's default language is Swift. So if you get your development tools up, the code provider in those development tools might be provided by Claude. But behind the scenes, Apple Intelligence is cherry picking the best parts of all of the providers and amalgamating them together, which actually makes it all less complicated and makes it more of a coherent use of AI in general. Just the approach. So that could be thought of as another benefit to the Apple Intelligence approach, rather than directly going to one or two providers. They can cherry pick from all providers.
Unless I am completely misconstruing this particular checkbox within my ChatGPT settings, and it is definitely worth delving into the settings of whichever AI platform you choose to use. There does appear to be a checkbox where you can say, don't use my data for modeling. So you can opt out
I think
of
Marty means an overall control within Apple settings that then tell all of them to not do that.
Which would be amazing.
So you don't have to individually set things.
Yeah. And that ties into what I was just going to suggest would be an awesome feature for Apple to bring to Apple Intelligence. And that is, once they start adding other platforms into it, let's say they do bring Gemini in as an option, and they do bring they do have ChatGPT as an option, or they bring in some others as options, and you turn them all on. I think anyone who's played with this knows how wildly different the responses can be to the same prompt with all the different services that are out there. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Apple said, hey, turn on all these services, we'll send your prompt out to all of them.
All of them,
gather together. We'll gather together the results. We will then analyze those results and present you with one answer that we think is the best one. That would be great.
That would be a killer feature.
That would be a killer feature.
I think there's another way that Apple could go about that, because before the prompt even gets sent out, Apple could help you construct a solid prompt. Because I think most of the problems that people have with disperse and different responses is their ability to engineer actually good prompts. So before it goes out, Apple takes you through a iterative process that asks you more questions about what you want to know about, and then it generates an effective prompt versus most people treat AI like Google searches. They don't think about putting in what's the role, what's the context. This is some of the stuff that I can talk about when I get to Macstock. But there are some different levels of being able to generate those things effectively. I don't think Apple's there yet to handle it with what it has, but if it's going to send something out, it's better that it sends out something and it's created on device, that it sends out something that's more useful for Apple if they're building, a cloud-based system, and more useful for the user who's sending it in. So, and it seems a little bit more efficient way of doing it if they're making sure what you're sending out is not garbage, so you don't get garbage back.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out. I was just going to say that, Darren. All right, let's get to something fun. And I'm going to start with Darren first, and then we'll jump over to Marty. But I wanted to ask each of you, what's the coolest thing you've done with Apple Intelligence? And let's start with you, Darren.
Okay. Yeah, I still think, the coolest thing is the photo cleanup. I just like how it's presented and the results that you get, and the fact that it's so accessible. Anyone can get into some more advanced photo editing without even realizing they're using AI tools to enhance their photos. So that's my favorite. And the other one is the summarize mail button, which I couldn't survive. I have to take several days off to read the responses of one of my friends that sends me. So without that summarize button, I'll never survive trying to figure out what on earth he's saying to me.
That's not me,
so
is it?
No. This is another friend of mine. I just have to send him a couple of sentences, and the emails I get back are, shall we say, need a lot of scrolling.
You just don't appreciate a proper response. That's all.
That's it. He's so good at responding. That's the trouble. He's too good.
He's too good. That's my problem too. I'm just too good. I give way too much detail. And then I find out after the fact that the person I sent all the detail to doesn't really read their emails after all. So
yeah, or they use that summarize button and they only read a paragraph of what you wrote.
How about you, Marty? Now you mentioned
now I'm feeling guilty because I'm one of those folks that doesnn't read everything that's in an email. So like Darren, I'd say the summarizing thing is because I'll go into a meeting for a couple hours and somebody will have a battle over something.
Yeah.
And I'm on the CC list of that. And when I get out of the meeting, I open it up and here's the summary of the battle. And it's like, okay, so this is what I missed. The coolest thing I think I've ever done with Apple Intelligence, this doesn't seem like a big thing, but at the moment it felt big to me. I had my phone set up with CarPlay, and Sheila works fine with me with my phone with CarPlay. And so I asked Sheila, I'm in my car with a professor who's like 84 years old, and he's considered like the renowned expert in this particular methodology, that a research methodology that I employ. And he and I have these conversations about this research methodology. And we were driving to go to lunch to meet someone halfway at the lunch. And so I drove him in the car and we passed this area in Ohio. And I said, I wonder how that got its name. And he said, I don't know either. So I'm like crossing my fingers because I want to show this guy I'm so cool. And I said, Sheila, can you tell me why or how this area, blah, 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 got its name? And Sheila, glowed a little bit on my CarPlay screen for a while. And then it said, I really can't answer that, but can I send this out to ChatGPT and see if they will give you an answer? And I said, yes, please do that, Sheila. And, it glowed a little bit. And it came back with a description of why that particular area, that particular town, why it was named that way. And I'm like, I'm
Wow.
driving with this guy and I'm feeling like king of the world because, I'm in
Awesome.
this
Yeah.
car that has all this automation in it that can answer these questions while I'm driving, while I'm not typing,
Yeah.
and
It's
things
like
like
science
that.
fiction.
Hey, you
Yeah.
guys chat
Almost
for a minute.
exactly like science fiction.
My doorbell's ringing. I'm be right back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no
Okay.
worries. Yeah, funny you should say that, Marty, actually, because it is pretty much like science fiction coming true, and it has done. I've got a couple of example links that I've sent to Mike to possibly include in the show notes, and one of them is, oh, how old is it? Well, 40 years old. The original Apple Knowledge Navigator video
Hmm.
um, that Apple put out 40 years ago essentially shows what now has become reality. Um, so it's showing effectively an iPad, although back then it wasn't an iPad, it's just a sheet of glass. And on there is an intelligent assistant talking to you in natural language and giving you results through a normal interface. So this Knowledge Navigator video that was done in 1987 is now real.
Hmm.
And I've got another example, which is the first view of what would have become the iPad, which is in 1968. So that was from a Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey. So there's a scene there where the guys in the spaceship are using something that looks remarkably like an iPad. And then lo and behold, science fiction has become true and it's real.
I'm trying to find something here that I will show. Well, where is it?
Excellent. Well, I think that's what's
Uh,
happening now. So the things that we see now in science fiction are things that will become real in 30 to 40 years, or many of the things that are shown in shows now. Which is great because it's like we're living in the Star Trek universe almost.
it's the problem. There it is. I'll throw this into the chat. Hopefully it will let me. No, it's a PNG file. Gonna have to change it.
uh, let's see if I haven't clicked on the chat button, so let's see what that looks like if I click on that. I'm not sure if it does.
I'm converting it now.
Ah, cool.
And while Mike's away, we'll play.
Excellent.
Crazy.
Oh, it's restricted by the admin. I can't send you a picture.
Sorry about that. Why do you ring my doorbell like crazy and then just leave a package on the porch?
Wow.
Like, just one time and it's like, oh, there's a package. I thought it was somebody who actually needed me. Anyway.
No worries.
How you
What could
doing?
go wrong? Hey.
Good.
This is what makes live recording fun.
I've got an image I want to share with you, but I can't.
You
but
can.
We'll do that after the show.
I
can?
Oh, wait a minute. Is it something that shouldn't be shown on a family-friendly podcast? Is that what you mean?
No, it can be shown on a family-friendly podcast. This has nothing to do with, it has something to do with artificial intelligence, but it has nothing to do with Apple right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we were just chatting about things that were in science fiction that have become true.
Oh,
like the Knowledge Navigator video, 40 odd years old, which is effectively an iPad with an AI on it, um, intelligent agents, so on, and also the scene in Space Odyssey 2001, where the guys on the spaceship are using something that looks remarkably like an iPad, and there are many instances of shows in science fiction that show things that become science fact a few decades down the road.
Star
So
Trek
we've got
is,
exactly what,
yeah.
start to be the Star
Yep.
Trek universe eventually when we.
Vision Pro is Minority Report.
Minority
There you go.
Report. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all coming true.
Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah.
Tablet computing, boy, gosh, tablet compute. You know, a little rat hole here, but tablet computing has been a pipe dream for so many decades now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do remember Bill Gates being on stage trying to demonstrate the world's worst tablets.
Oh, I was there. There was a
Wow.
live.
Oh,
well, I don't
wow.
know if I was at that one that you saw, but there was Microsoft held this big event on Navy Pier in Chicago, and I signed up to go, and my dad came along with me, and it was for the new tablet OS. And
It was
it was a
awful.
big demo, and had to have been one of their largest flops. I mean, it just did not
Oh,
go
yeah.
anywhere.
One of the biggest
Yeah.
flops ever. Yeah, it was shockingly bad.
But then I was also there the day that he was demoing how many devices you could plug into a Windows computer via USB, and then the blue screen.
This is this is the plug and play demo.
Yeah.
Where he came up on stage. I think he plugged a
That was
scanner in or
Chicago.
something like that.
Yeah.
And that's it. All hell broke loose. Plugged the scanner in. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we
dear,
don't get
dear.
that anymore. I'm sad because those are all great experiences that in my life I didn't get to take opportunity to because I wasn't looking in that direction then.
Right.
Now I'm constantly looking in that direction. It's like, oh man, that must have been fun.
Yeah, I think I read I can't remember which biography it was, but I did read one about the Apple demo for the live demo that Steve Jobs did for the iPhone. And the developers in the audience and behind the scenes were literally praying that he didn't scroll too quickly or he didn't squish something back and forth too many times because they knew it was 99% going to crash if he did one thing wrong. But by a miracle, it all came off and there were no errors. But it was so close to it going horribly wrong on stage. I have no idea how Steve would have handled it. Probably quite well, but it was touch and go. The poor developers there, they were sweating.
You're fired, and you're fired.
Yeah, you're fired. You're fired. Everyone's fired. Everyone leave.
And you're promoted. You're promoted. You have to take the place of those three I just let go. Yeah, so that's pretty cool, Marty. I really enjoyed that example of Apple Intelligence where you handed it off to ChatGPT and now you get this wonderful summary of it was the summary of the town and how it came to be, right?
Yeah, and they also sourced it. They got it off of Wikipedia.
Wow!
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So they said, according to Wikipedia, this is where it came from.
Anything else either of you would like to bring up about Apple Intelligence, its features, how we use it, before we wrap things up this week?
I just think that carry on, Marty.
I just think listeners need to go easy on Apple.
Yes,
that's
what I was going to say. Nice one.
Apple is never going to be the first, but they're going to get it right. 99% of it will be right when they get it done right. And I think they got swept up into the emotions of what was going on because people kept yelling at them, "You're behind in AI, you're behind in AI." And so that's why I think we had the debacle this year where all these things were promised that I was going to talk about at Macstock that didn't quite come out. And because of that, they took they took a little bruising on that. But I think folks need to look at what the product can do right now, and how it's integrated into their system, and think about it differently than Perplexity or Claude or even ChatGPT at this point. So they just need to be a little more gentle. It'll get there.
Awesome. Anything to add, Darren?
No, funny enough, what Marty just said very eloquently is pretty much exactly what I was going to say. To essentially cut Apple a little bit of slack, because it's not as if Apple Intelligence features aren't there. Quite a lot of them are really useful, and they're already baked into the OS. There's definite valid reasons for saying that Apple hasn't done the best of jobs on the Siri side. And there's a video from Snazzy Labs about the Apple Intelligence disaster. Good title. Which in my book isn't a disaster, but he does have some valid criticisms of how Siri was managed. But as we know, Siri improvements are coming down the road, and I'd much rather Apple go slowly but surely into the new world of AI rather than move fast and break things. I don't like that approach. So I think Apple's approach is correct, and people should cut Apple a little bit of slack to let them do it right, as Marty says.
Yeah, and recognize the fact that what they're doing isn't being done by any of the other platforms in terms of privacy and security. And
Exactly.
So it's going to be a completely different product with promises kept that you're not going to get from other platforms.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, if anyone listening has any thoughts on AI and its place in our lives, or if you have become a heavy user of Apple Intelligence, and let me put it this way. Let me rephrase that. Have you become a heavy user of Apple Intelligence, or do you reach for that little toggle switch in Apple settings?
Immediately turn it off and run screaming the other way.
That's right. If you would like to share your thoughts with others, drop me a line or leave a comment in the show notes for this episode, and we will share your comments here on the show. Well, Marty, we do like to put our guests in the hot seat. And one of the things that we do each episode is we wrap up with what we like to call our essential app. This is an app that we love to use or we can't live without. And we feel that just about everyone out there should consider installing it on their Mac, or at least give it a good try. And since you are our guest this episode, I thought it might be fun to see if you have an essential app that you would like to share.
I am going to say TextExpander.
Okay.
And the reason I say TextExpander is I think I first heard about it when I was at Macstock, and Smile on My Mac was there, and there, and so I'm like, well, this is really cool. Now, all in all, you can look at it and say, well, some of this is built into operating systems. It's basically will generate text that you have pre-programmed from a macro that you type in. So, but it's become such a valuable app for me. I work currently as a professor, a faculty member, and I coordinate a program here at Kent State University. And as an instructor, it's become invaluable because I wind up getting the same emails from different people all the time. And I have put the template out. I don't have to copy and paste anymore, that I can type in a code, and I have that code, and I know that code because I've used it enough, a 3-letter code that will bring up and populate whatever I'm writing in with that email response. And I can even put in stop points where it asks me to fill in specifics that are related to the direct response. It has become an invaluable tool. The thing that you have to do is you do have to kind of build up your library. And now I can't get away from it because my library includes not only these repetitive mails that I get as a program coordinator from students interested in being in the program, but I also run a listserv and I get the same emails from people wanting to know about the listserv. And I also teach, and I have to give the same responses on assignments that I have to give to everybody in the class or many people in the class. So I have a section of responses for certain assignments for each course. So if you find yourself in a scenario where you've got a lot of repetitive, oh, it's the same email, et cetera, then I think this is very valuable. Now, here's how I integrate it with AI. There's a couple of ways that I integrate it with AI.
Nice tie-in.
One is, yeah, well, it's, I'm
awesome
trying to give some strength to this, With AI, I have to write a lot of letters of recommendation, and I can take a template from this, and I can take the template and a long template of what I want to say, and I can put it into ChatGPT. And then I can put in information about the specific student, like they taught this class with me. I've worked on their dissertation titled this. This is, my impression of them in terms of a student and potential, because I'm working with doctoral students, potential faculty member at your institution, if they're considering hiring them for the such thing. And I can run it through ChatGPT with the template and all the context that I put in, and it will generate a really good letter, which, of course I have to read and make sure things are correct with it. Or I can run it through ChatGPT again and say, fix this or emphasize this more and more. So I have a set of letters that are also part of TextExpander that I use. And then I created a new section just for AI prompts because there's a series of lengthy prompts that I use, and maybe some of this, depending on time. I've also got to talk to Mike Schmitz about it too, because I don't want to cross over what he's going to talk about at Macstock. But the idea that there are prompts that I will use over and over again that are extremely lengthy that I now have coded in. So when I open up an AI product, ChatGPT or whatever I'm going to use at the time, all I have to do is type in the short code for it, and the full prompt fills out, and then I can ask it to do what I specifically want it to ask to do and use that prompt for that purpose. Nice. So I just keep adding purpose and adding tasks to TextExpander and keep it open on my window. It opens up when I boot up my Mac, and it's there for me to use for all sorts of purposes, whatever projects I'm drawn into or writing.
And at this point, I'm certain you heard about it at Macstock. That was the year that Kelly Gamont came out as a representative of Smile, and she was handing out stickers and hats and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, because she worked for them at that time. Since that time, there have been a lot of changes at Smile, and one of the changes was another company purchased PDF Pen and PDF Pen Pro, so that's no longer under their umbrella. And I believe they've consolidated everything down to where, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I believe they've consolidated everything down to where TextExpander is their flagship product. That's it. That's all they do now is TextExpander. And if you try to go to smilesoftware.com, you end up at textexpander.com. So something I learned as I was putting together the notes for this episode. But while TextExpander is pretty well known, we should probably explain what it is at its core. It's basically a tool that allows you to create little snippets of text that you associate, as you said, like a little three-letter keyword or something with, and that's all you have to memorize, those 3 letters. And when you type them in, TextExpander sees that code and then inserts that snippet. It expands that code into the full snippet that you've associated it with. So it can save a ton of time. And if you use it the way that you mentioned it, where you can have variables and have it stop and prompt you for further information as it's filling in the code, oh my gosh, that would be such an amazing tool to have at everyone's disposal. I don't use TextExpander specifically, but there are other text completion tools, and one that I happen to use is Type It For Me. And that's one I've used in the past. And then, of course, the Mac has its own text expansion tool built into it, just not as full-featured as TextExpander is. How much is TextExpander? Is it a one-time purchase or is it a subscription?
No, it's a subscription now, and I think it's I don't know.
I don't know. $40 a year. I think it's about $40 a year for an individual.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, or $30. I can't remember.
And then if you have business needs, if you have a team of users, they have organizational licenses as well. One of the neat things about it, though, that some of the other text expanders don't have, some do, but not all of them do, is the ability to sync these snippets across all of your devices. So isn't there TextExpander for iOS too now? I think of it as a Mac app.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Isn't there TextExpander for iOS?
I believe so.
I think there is.
I think there is,
You can literally sync your snippets to all of your devices, or at the very least, all of your Macs, so that it's very easy to retrieve these things no matter where you are. Very cool. Great suggestion. And I love the way that you use it.
And also integrating it with AI for me has been. I have some long prompts that I've put together that I use occasionally for project development, for creating strategic plans. All of that is very complicated, and I just don't want to do the mouse movement, finding the folder that has all of it in and copy and paste it. It's just semicolon, whatever it is, CLV, and pop, it happens for me.
And that type of usage hadn't even occurred to me. That's a great way to use a tool like this. And you're right, without having to dig through all your notes and try to find those specific prompts that you've used in the past, here they are. And they're all literally at your fingertips. That's great. That's great. Well, awesome. Well, with that said, that's going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, I do love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, or maybe there are some artificial intelligence tips that you would like to share with everyone, please be sure to leave your comments in the show notes for this week's episode at formatguysonly.com, or, of course, you can drop me a line, mike@formatguysonly.com. And do be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click that little notification bell so you can find out when we're going live. You can join our chat room, and you can catch all the behind-the-scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show, like when I had to go answer the door a few moments ago. Hey, Marty, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me at Jencius, last name Jencius, at mastodon.social. And if you want to find all the projects that I'm involved in and shows that I'm on, simply go to the podtalk.net website, and you'll be able to connect with me and see the other podcasts I do, like Vision Profiles. Mike mentioned a few at the beginning of the show. And Old Mac Gang, which is people over the age of 65 talking about technology and what it means to people in our age group. And then Gear Up and Go, which is a podcast I do with my son about tech gear for travel and tech apps for travel. And he'll be at Macstock too. So it's going to be fun for me to show him off to all my friends, and I hope he doesn't embarrass me.
He will be at Macstock, and not only that, you're going to be co-presenting a talk on Sunday.
On travel tech. We're going to, a little break here. We're going to do sort of a show us your best stuff. And we're going to take suggestions from the audience and have the audience kind of say why this is their best stuff. And there will be door prizes.
Wow. Cool. Oh, that's cool. I'm excited now. That's really awesome. Hey, Darren, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Yeah, no worries. If anyone wants to send me a short and concise email, they could send me one at darren@formacceyesonly.com.
Awesome.
And I won't have to use that summarize button.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Darren and, of course, Marty for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone.
Cheerio.